Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back. It's Moksha, and this is part 2 of my demo on making an abstract painting using Decalcomania. So in this video, we're going to take a deeper dive into our painting. We're going to get out the brushes, and we're going to start adding a lot of depth and atmosphere. We're going to add more color. We're going to look deeply into our painting, and we're going to bring out some of the mysterious forms and creatures and things that we see in our mysterious texture here that we made in the first demo. If you haven't seen that video, please watch that before this, unless you're just up for some kind of crazy adventure. Let's just jump right into it, and I'll show you how this is done. Okay, let's just jump right into it. Make sure you're all teed up, or coffee or whiskey or whatever it is you're feeling this morning. And first, before we start painting, I want you to take a moment and make sure that the space that you create in feels good to you. This is something that's really important, that is often overlooked. We may not think about it consciously, but feel like we're cramped, or I don't know, just the energy's not quite flowing, or something's not quite right. And so it really helps to pay attention to that and think about what maybe you could do differently. Clean up a little bit, open the window, put on some good music, burn some incense, whatever it is that will help you to kind of drop into the creative space easier and more completely. I would like to propose the idea that we could look at this process as sort of a sacred act. Art can certainly be just like therapeutic, and just something that we do to release energy and to connect and just express ourselves. There's also just the fact that this is like a mystical process. It's very special. It's a sacred process that we enter into, and we choose to make a work of art from our soul onto this canvas or board. And so I want to just suggest that we could maybe offer a little intention as we start to create, that we intend to we want to make something beautiful, or we want to really tap into this divine spirit that creativity flows from. It's a gift that comes to us that we are sometimes able to express, and not always. It's okay if you're not feeling it today. You can come back to it tomorrow. Inspiration is not something you can just turn on, and I'm well aware of that. There's plenty of times when I don't feel like painting, and often I don't try to push it. I'll just come back to it when I'm feeling it. But there's a lot of ways you can help to sort of jog that. You could get out in nature, go for a walk, be in the trees for a little bit. You could look at an art book, by an artist that is somebody you are influenced by, or somebody you admire. Conversations with people sometimes spark interesting creative ideas. And so let's just take a minute to kind of close our eyes and have a quick meditation on where we're at in this physical world, and kind of where we would like to project our imagination into, to offer up to the world a beautiful new painting. So, and close your eyes and go. I just had an idea. I live a couple blocks from a park. I should go for a walk. When I look at Decalcomania like this, what I see is the textures of nature. Ground cover with pine cones and sticks and dead leaves, shrubs and foliage with flowers and berries, tree bark. And I think this is a good point to take a break, get some fresh air, and gather new inspiration. So I'm going to go to the park. Maybe you'd like to come along with me. Ah, that was great. That was exactly what I needed. Oh man, I feel good. I'm glad I did that. So I hope you found some inspiration from that, or maybe you went out and got your own inspiration. And without further ado, let's finally get into this. I'm going to point the camera at the palette and I'll show you the tools I'm working with and explain a little bit how we're going to proceed now. So thank you for sticking with me. Let's get into it. Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention, and then I promise we'll start painting. This is a good time to stand back and decide on which orientation you like best for your painting. So I've had it mostly sitting like this in this video, but I'm deciding now as I'm getting into the painting which way I want to do it. So I'll rotate it all 4 directions. I'll stand back, I'll contemplate, I'll squint one eye kind of like this, and then the other eye, and make a funny face and kind of turn my head sideways. Maybe I'll do something like this, or if you're Illuminati, you can go like this. You can do that if you want. You can look through that at your painting like a weirdo. Yeah, so basically we just want to get a good feel for our work and where we want to start. So anyway, there's that. There you go. What do you think of that? Not bad. That's okay. I kind of like this kind of swirl motion here. That feels emphasized at that orientation. This way I like, this feels like a big fish. There's an eye right there. Some seaweed or something. This is when we start to see stuff. You don't even have to take substances. By, substances, I mean like carrot muffins or something. And this is pretty good. I'm torn between that and this. And always throughout this process, I'm rotating the canvas constantly. And this is a good way to mix things up, to see new angles into your painting, also to see imbalances. It's really important to turn the painting. So finally, we're going to start painting. I'm going to throw some white on the palette, and I swear, I promise, we're going to paint now. Thank you for being patient. Let's get into it. In this demo, I'm going to be using titanium white. It's a nice opaque white, and if I need it thinner, I can always use a little water or glazing liquid to dilute it. Alternatively, there's zinc white. If you're not familiar, it's not like a different shade of white, it's just simply more transparent. And so that's an option, but I'm not going to use zinc white. I just wanted to let you know about it. But I'll use the titanium to get started here. So pour a little bit out, and the brushes I'll be primarily using for this demo are called filberts, and this is what they look like. They have a round top edge, but they're slim. They're good for details and also covering more broad areas. They're very versatile, so you can get a variation of sharpness and softness with them. This one is it's got sort of long bristles, and it's soft, so you can, when there's not a lot of paint left on the brush, sort of a dry brush technique, you can get a very soft, feathery look from them. And then a third one that I often like to use is called an angled shader brush. And these are really nice for getting sharp detail lines and things like that, or getting in little nooks and crannies, because they have a sharp edge. But you can also do broader, like the filberts, you can do broader areas with them too, to fill in the gaps. So those are my go-tos for this stage. And let's start working finally. First thing I'll do is I'll start finding these negative areas, especially any place that butts up against a dark edge like this. And I want this dark edge to appear to come forward. So I'm going to accentuate that by sort of painting around it. And as you can see, that was pretty opaque. I don't really want to go too heavy with the white at this point. So I'm being kind of careful. It's most opaque and most white right on that edge, and then I'm wiping some paint off of the brush to feather it out a little bit. And less paint on the brush, then I can use, instead of the tip of the brush, I'll start using more of the flat edge of it to kind of soften the brush stroke like this. And keep in mind that this will not end up white in the end. We end up glazing color over the white because usually there's not pure white anywhere in nature except for like the brightest highlights. So what we're doing at this phase is we're just establishing our values, the lights and the darks. That's what that means. Values are the lightest light and the darkest dark and everything in between. And so you can sort of start to find the shapes you like. And little areas like this, I feel like there's light catching this very sharp little edge right there. Kind of botched that. So it's areas like that where this sharper kind of brush really come in handy. And maybe this whole area here is like sky or something punching through. Like we're really seeing far into the distance here, perhaps. There's some kind of light source within all of this chaos that's shining through. So I have very little paint left on the brush, and I'm just lightening the area. It doesn't have to be a solid, flat, white, like really smooth, because there's texture and everything. There's a little bit of light variation everywhere throughout, so it doesn't have to be super smooth unless that's your artistic choice to make it smooth. You don't even need a reason for it. If that's how you feel it, that's how you should paint it. All right, we're going to continue with the same process I did down here. I've moved the camera so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Sorry about that. There's so many things to keep track of while filming something like this, but this should be a better view. So I'm just going to get my white, and I like what I did here, so I'm going to keep punching out sort of this middle area. I feel like that's, the center of the painting is kind of a focal point, and I'm going to lighten up all this area in between these darker pieces here to try to bring them out. So I'll work for a little bit on this. I might end up turning the camera to time-lapse, and then I'll come back and explain some more. Okay. As I'm working, maybe you can tell I'm using a combination of the tip of the brush to get the sharp lines when I'm butting up against the dark edges, and then I'll turn the brush and use more of the face of it, sort of, to get a broader, softer stroke. So the name of the game here is just creating depth. That's what I'm going for here. To find the shapes that I'm really drawn to, the things that I find are the most interesting, and to bring those out and give them a little more form, a little more shape. I'm focusing, like I said, I'm focusing more on the background right now, but eventually I'll move up into, surface level, these shapes, and bringing out the edges and the things that will help define them more. So again, the brightest parts, these aren't highlights necessarily, they're more like edge lights, I guess you could call them. They're the brightest whites right now at this point. And that is just to really punch up the contrast between the lights and the darks. Anytime you have a dark edge, it looks good generally to have it meet a lighter edge. Okay, here's what I did so far. As you can see, I just continued adding white to the background area to punch those dark shapes up. And now I'm getting into the areas where I want to start defining the edges of the actual shapes themselves that I like. So I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit here and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so again, I'm liking these, I feel like this shape right here, if you can see that, is sort of coming in front of this piece behind here, maybe. Let's just say. Who knows? And so what I'll start doing is defining those inner shapes, these inner edges. And again, I'll maybe start with kind of a sharp line, rub a lot of the paint off my brush, and go in and soften it. I can dip my brush in water, wipe it off. And I really want just kind of a softness behind the shape and the one that it's in front of. Some of these other edges, there's a big piece here that I'm going to define. It's easy to go too far. I feel like that could have been a little softer, but it's okay because, like I said earlier, this all this white is going to be softened, and we're going to glaze over the top of all this to add color back into it, and that always kind of darkens it a little bit as well. Of course, painting is such a forgiving medium. You can paint over things completely or partially, pretty much indefinitely until you get it right. So there's no need to worry about making terrible mistakes and ruining your painting and things like this, because it's all fixable. No need to stress about it. But you see where I'm going with this. It's not a good idea to use your finger to blend. You know, these acrylic paints are less toxic than oil paints, but I'm not convinced that some of the colors, like the cadmiums and things, aren't absorbing into the skin, so I don't recommend it. Setting a bad example. I try not to do that. I try to blend with a rag, but it's just so convenient having this big meat stub, you know, paint softener at the end of your fingers, at the end of your hands that are your fingers. Yeah, so this is just play. Get into a meditation. Try not to think too hard about it. Just have fun. Try to have as much fun as you did in the first phase with the Decalcomania. At that stage, it felt like we weren't really in control. You know, there was a lot left up to kind of the unknown. This crazy plastic bag doing what plastic bags do. And the result is surprising because, I don't know, we're not really in control. And I feel like that applies, it can apply to many of the phases of making a painting, if you want it to, you know. It's that kind of release of control, the trust in the process that we are engaging in when we take that point of view, when we have that frame of mind of like, I'm just going to give it up, you know, to the divine, and I'm just going to have fun, trust the process. Again, always, it's my favorite mantra, trust the process. Just get into it, forget about the result. It'll be good or bad, it doesn't matter. You want to make a good painting, but I think the less we try, maybe the better result I find sometimes with my work. And I think that's a healthy point of view, at least. But here's what I came up with this passive white. Zoom in so you can see a little better. really brings a lot of depth already to the painting. I especially like this area here. Feels like it has a lot of depth to it. So much fun. Now in the next phase, what I'm going to do is start glazing in some color. This is where it starts to get pretty fun. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with quinacridone magenta. I'm just going to need a tiny little bit. That's probably too much. And I'm going to use some satin glazing liquid. This is what we use to dilutes the paint, but it keeps the thickness of it, the viscosity is still, it's not like water, so it spreads a little nicer, I think. Doesn't tend to run as much. It slows the drying time just a little bit, which is a nice thing. And I'm going to use, that's about a 1-inch brush, just a flat. You could also use a filbert. And I can get the brush a little wet and just kind of blend this a little bit. I'm mostly using the glazing liquid. What I've decided I want to do is do kind of a gradient maybe with more pinks up in this side, this corner of the painting, and then blue as it fades down to blue. I might add, I don't know yet, I might have a little bit of yellow in the middle. I'm mostly painting on the white areas and avoiding the darker parts, but as you may be able to tell, I'm not being really super careful, because when the paint's this thin, it's a little bit hard to tell where it overlaps from the white into the greener areas. And my part of my style personally is a little bit messy, and I like all the kind of natural variation, the little things that happen when you're not being completely too controlling over the brush strokes. Personally, that's my style, but it's certainly not the only style. And I invite you to do whatever is calling to you. So it's most pink up here, and then fades a little bit, at least in my world. And again, this is just another layer. We'll paint over this again. You can use a rag to soften some strokes if you'd like. And so far I'm just using one color, but maybe I decide I want a little variation as it comes down. To this pink I might add a little blue. I think under here, I don't know why, but I'm just feeling like I want a little more orange. And I'm not going to point back at the palette because I have to move the camera and the lights and everything to do that. But this is everything, every color I add at this phase, I'm going to use the same steps that I showed you by adding a little bit of the satin glazing liquid. I'm grabbing a clean filbert, and again I'm just going to kind of test it before I put too much paint down. I don't know if I like this. Totally okay to change your mind. I don't know if I like it. I think I'm going to mix the orange with a little bit of my magenta, because I kind of want an orange tint, but this is just feeling too much of a color change right away. I kind of wanted more of just a subtle orange glow. That feels a little better. I'll use my towel to kind of just pat it. And I'll take some of the paint off, and maybe give it a little texture. In some of the dark areas, I can add a little bit of color. So it kept it dark there, but it shifted it from green to a little more towards magenta. Like I said, there's no hard and fast method here. We have a lot of creative freedom to just do whatever we're feeling. See, now I'm getting up in the dark areas. I have all of these interior little white lines, the details that I did that are, you know, they're not sort of these bigger background areas, as I was calling this the background. And I'm going to glaze into these interior white lines really softly. I'll just knock them back just a little bit so they're not so bright white. Nothing is really pure bright white in nature. It's probably hard to see on camera, but I'm just very lightly glazing color into a lot of this white area. And I think what I'm going to do now is come in with my blue, as I was describing earlier. It'll be more down in this area, and I've added a little of my glazing liquid. This is a phthalo blue I'm using. Phthalo blue red shade, if you want to get particular. As you can see, we're losing some of our depth as we do this because the white, the value is getting pushed back again. It's getting a little bit darker as this color goes over the white. And so this is another layer of mini. After this, I'll lighten it up a little bit again, maybe. Oops. And as I have very little paint left on the brush, I like to kind of just broadly go over some areas to tie it all together. Softens it. It feels a little more unified, you know. If this blue area poking through is sort of a background color that's glowing, it's going to cast blue light on everything. And so with this stage, there's usually no hard and fast distinction from one layer to the next. This is how we create a little more atmosphere. Everything's a little glowing. As the paint's still wet, I can dab off just a little bit, and it kind of varies the light source a little bit. Makes it feel a little more interesting, a little less flat. Acrylic paint dries so quickly, but you generally have a couple seconds, and with this satin glazing liquid, it does slow the drying time enough that you have a few more seconds to work with it. Not a lot, but a little bit. Now I'm glazing a little bit of blue over the pink, the magenta that I already laid down, and that creates yet another bit of variation in color and texture. Don't forget to take a couple steps back every so often and make your funny faces, contemplate, squint your eyes, scrunch your face up, look into it. What do you see? What do you want to do differently with your painting right now at this phase? Time to take a closer look at what we've done here, what I've done, the royal we. Yeah, like that area kind of right there in the middle. Still has a lot of interesting contrast. We lost a lot of our contrast down here in this part, so I'm going to go back now and maybe add some more white. At this point we can decide what other kind of colors we want. This middle area, I feel like there should be kind of a glow, and I'm going to try putting in a little bit of yellow, but I might have to go back to white first. That's a common practice if you want if you want to put a bright color in, but you've already established some colors in this area like I have. Because this paint is kind of transparent, it often doesn't really read properly. And like this is looking kind of like a muddy yellow. It's not really the glowing yellow that I was hoping for. So yeah, I don't think it's really working right. Looks too dark. Too dirty yellow. I want a glowing yellow. I'm back to white, doing little highlights, mostly like back to kind of accenting edges and things like that. Now that I've established a lot of color and value, and I'm losing some edges in places, and I want to bring those back. I'm seeing some little mushrooms right here. I might bring those out. Maybe that's the beginning of a theme that I carry throughout the painting. I could add more mushrooms here and there. So it all starts with a painting like this, at least, where it's not planned out. Things emerge, and you get to run with it if you like or not. I like mushrooms though. Shiitakes are great. Really like shiitake mushrooms. They're great in an omelet. I could go for an omelet right now. This is kind of the name of the game from here on out. I'm adding color, I'm adding a lot of detail. I'm really working with my values, pushing and pulling the lights and the darks to get things to come forward or move backwards in space, adding atmosphere, softening some edges and sharpening other ones. Sky's the limit here. You can really play around and do pretty much anything you want. I think you get the idea from here on out. I don't know that I need to make this video extend through the very end of the painting, so I may stop filming actually, but I think before I end, I'll do another pass, and I'm going to show you, so far I've mostly been lightening areas, and I'm going to go back with some darks. This value, the darkest one, this is kind of a very dark green. It looks black, but I never used black in this painting. And so I think it'd be fun to kind of pull some of those really darks back into the painting. And I'll do that, and then I think we can wrap this up. I'll continue to work on it after this video, because there's a lot more I can do with it. But I think for the purpose of this filming, that's about as far as I need to take it. I think you get the idea from here on out. There it is with a lot of darks added back in. That's bringing some more form to the painting. And I'll keep going with this after the video. There's a lot more to do to finish it, but it's more or less the same process, just refining more working with my values. This area in here, I need a lot of lights in there to punch that out. And I can add as much color as I want. I can completely add new shapes and pretty much do anything I want. Sometimes I'll go back to Decalcomania even at this point. I could do a certain area. If I don't like, maybe let's say I don't like this area right here, I could just take white, slop it all over there, slap the plastic bag down and pull it off. And then I'm kind of, in a way, I'm kind of back to the beginning but it's going to be already more integrated because the colors and the textures and the things that I've already added here are going to show through the white layer. Anyhow, what I'm saying is just experiment, and by this phase you pretty much know how this process works, and you can just keep rolling with it as long as you want until you're satisfied. And that's how it's done. This is one way of making an abstract painting using Decalcomania. So I think I will, when I finish this, I'll post the final painting in the comment section so you can see the finished product. But for now, we'll leave it here. I hope you got something out of this. These videos are really time consuming and pretty challenging for me to create, so please like and subscribe if you got anything out of it. I'm trying to get my account to 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize and maybe make a little bit of money back doing this. So your support really super duper helps me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.